We are now recording. Good morning, good evening, good night, because it's all that in all different places of the world. I'm Raul. We got Trey. We got Justin, and then our newest addition to the Trestleboard Talk, Aaron Bullock. We're bringing him on primarily for the Constitutional Corner. We're calling that this segment the Constitutional Corner. I'm excited about it. I am, but I tend to get excited about the little things. So, disclaimer, our views are just that, our views. They have nothing to do with any Grand Lodges that we're associated with, nor officers associated with said Grand Lodges. These are just our views and our opinions only. This is how we feel. We want brothers to know how we feel because we want you to have a, as they say in project management, psychological safe space to do what you need to do, right? Now, but let me do this in all fairness to our newest member. You guys see the screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so on the left side, man, the good mind principle. I can tell you that I've started the book. I've given it to one of my students today, and he was hooked. He says he's gonna read the whole book this weekend. That intro is like read me, shut up, forget everything you know, and then unlock the rules and process of manifestation. Great read so far. I tend to read it as soon as I get done with the Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. And then on the right side is our measly little book that came out a couple weeks ago, the 40 Miles, right? Get those two books, but definitely I highly recommend the Good Mind Principle. So we want to give brothers a
God mind principle.
God mind. Excuse
God
me.
mind.
Yes, Fridays, I ain't got no job, I ain't got nothing to do. So
Available broadly on Amazon.
all over Amazon, both books, God Mind Principle. Again, and I can't stress enough that the intro is riveting. And I told Aaron this myself when I read the intro. I sat there on my phone and read the intro on Kindle. Crazy. And it's one of those things where it's one of those true reads you can't put down. The only reason I forced myself to put it down because I'm already reading another book. Other than that,
It's high praise, sir, and I do.
hey man, all good. And I literally gave it to one of my students today, and he loved it. He was reading it before class. Took about a half hour, and he was hooked. So I'll give you the feedback on Monday what he said.
Check that out.
Yeah, man. Again, let's get it. Let's get it today. We are actually going to do something a little different. We're gonna do this, the podcast title today, because we want to kind of give it a title and put the framework on this thing before we get into the Constitution. We want to call this episode The Trial and the Truth. The Trial and the Truth. And the first talking point, I'm getting ready to open Pandora's box, right? The fractured brotherhood. Let me say that again. Fractured brotherhood. Let's just call it what it is. It's all Freemasonry. Prince Hall Freemason, I can guarantee you, we strayed away from our foundational values, brotherly love, belief, and truth. Right? And here's some examples. Petty politics at the lodge level. I may have ruffled some feathers there, but let me say it again. Petty politics at the lodge level. Cliques and personal agendas are running the show instead of Masonic light. When the brothers raised and said, let there be light, and there was, while we involved in cliques and things like that. And then the new brothers getting raised immediately, feeling like outsiders because of the old guard versus the new blood. So there's a division in masonry right now. And then I personally think that more energy is spent on titles and jackets than on work, charity, mentorship, and education. So I'm gonna point it to you guys. What do you guys think?
I don't have any of those things in my lodge. My lodge is perfect.
All good, man. We all say our lives is perfect. Everybody's lives is perfect. Yeah, until it comes down to nuts and bolts, and then we have visitors and like, oh, you got the same problems we do.
Look, there's just so much meat here, right? I think that part of it is, we talk about this, and I've heard people say the challenge that you face is lodges are people by people.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And people bring all of their other normal human stuff into the lodge. However, if we just accept that, we're copping out in that we're not binding ourselves to one of the most important Masonic truths. We say it every time we open the lodge. We're here to subdue our passions and improve ourselves in Masonry. We're here to be better. We're here to learn to be better than we are in our normal everyday lives, and then bring that back into our normal everyday lives, right? It talks about all of these things that we are supposed to set aside, and really as a workshop inside that lodge. So if you could do it in the lodge, you should then be able to do it outside your lodge. But we should not be having these fractures. People are not going to agree, right? And frankly, you're going to have people in your lodge that you just can't stand, or that can't stand you for whatever reason. If we're doing it right, though, we're going to try to act as though or ignore those things and focus on the business of the lodge, but I think that we have to have communication to that. We have to talk to them.
Justin, Trey, what y'all think?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's too much focus on the business of the lodge. I'm a member of 2 lodges now in the area in which I live, which is outside the state of California, and they couldn't be more different. One, there are cliques. We spend the majority of our business meeting talking about our aging, very expensive lodge building. So there's not much education. There's not much going on. We talk about finances a lot. They just recently raised their dues. That was a big hot button topic of conversation. It's the typical, there's 100 members, usually get about 15 to 20 that show for stated meetings, but really there's only about 5 quote unquote active members in the lodge. It sounds, throughout the different jurisdictions that I've dealt with, that sounds like a pretty typical thing, that 20% rule of, the only 20% of your membership is actually going to be engaged. The other lodge I'm a member of couldn't be more different. We rent. There's only about 15 members in our lodge, and it is primarily based on what's important. We talk about what's going on in each other's lives during the stated meeting. Every brother in that lodge says something. They're attended by everybody, every member of that lodge attends all the meetings. Everybody says something. Everybody engages in the education. It's a very well-ran and organized meeting to where there's not a lot of wasted time. And when we're done, somebody has picked out a restaurant and we go eat together. Everybody goes together. So we don't worry about the logistics of preparing a meal. We don't have to worry about our building because we rent, but our dues are really high. They are the highest in this state. But I think with that being said, there's something there in regards to having high dues. I think that the members have a little bit more skin in the game, and they are putting a considerable amount of money towards this lodge. Like, yeah, they're going to be there and participate. They're not just going to give it away. So are all lodges fractured? I don't think so. But I hear a lot of the same narratives, and that's throughout multiple jurisdictions of that 20% rule.
I totally agree with that, but you just had an excellent example of 2 different cultures. You got lodges in the same geographical area, but you got 2 distinctly different cultures. And I said that to say this, that the culture of your lodge really dictates the membership and just the overall health of your lodge. One lodge is connected, the other lodge is disconnected, right? Based on the positive culture of said lodge. I don't know. Trey's been kind of quiet, which is scary. So I think he's drop a bombshell on us at some point. He is plotting.
No, I'm taking it in, and I'm hearing what everyone's saying. And as I reflect on previous episodes that we've had on here, this is the overwhelming sentiment, right? It's like Groundhog's Day, right, over and over again when talking about that. I think what we aim to do is, one, obviously bring it to light to let brothers know that, hey, like, if you're seeing this, know that it's not just an isolated thing, right? Like, most lodges struggle with this, but more importantly, it's like, okay, cool. After we've identified what are some things that we can do or that you can do as an individual to contribute to your lodge to bridge that gap, right? Bridge that gap between the business mind and the reflective, I'll call it the reflective mind, or the thing that you came here to get, right? So I think it feels like the same thing that we're talking about. I'm more so curious now, like, all right, cool. How do we help these brothers, right? How do we help bridge that gap?
I have some ideas. I kind of want to hear Aaron's take on how do we bridge the gap. I do have some ideas, but Aaron, what do you think about how do we give brothers some tools to put in their bag to bridge the gap?
Well, I'm going to say the grand lecturer probably should do something about it. Look, the reality is, I think that we have to, Justin spoke about this, right? Like, if all you're doing is talking about your money and all you're doing is talking about your building, whatever your challenges are, you're not working on yourself or your brothers, right? And we need to get into a culture of deeper conversation and community. Like, my lodge is a lecture lodge. Like, you come to my lodge, you're going to get a lecture. And what I tell the brothers is, be prepared. Come into the lodge with a lecture, because I'm probably going to call them. I may not, but I might. And if I call on you, I do expect you to have something to say. And it can be about anything, right? That's one thing. But also, I think that, to your point about the younger brothers and the older brothers in the lodge, speak to the culture of masonry, what it is, and continually remind the brothers that are there. Your job as a mason that has been in masonry for any amount of time is to mentor, is to teach new masons masonry.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you are in any way taking that stance, well, I'm a mason because I've been here for this many years, or I've seen this, or I know that, you're not a mason yet. Stretch. If you've received your third degree, you're as much a mason as any mason ever on the planet.
You have all the rights, license, responsibilities, but I do remember one of the charges specifically speaking to being ready to receive is ready to give information. Right. So then that it's a reciprocal course.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
I mean, that speaks also to, I think you have a program, right? Multi-year program.
right.
That assumes that you don't know everything, if you know anything, when you first get raised.
Ground zero.
Some spaces where in which you can listen, that attentive ear, but also be in the receiving actively. So I think we need more of that.
Do you think that just there are a lot of bad habits in a lot of these different lodges? You know, these guys have been around a long time. Maybe they didn't learn the right way. Like they don't know what right looks like. So you just have this kind of continuous snowball effect, right? Of nobody really knows what this is supposed to look like. Like, do you think that that could be an issue? Like,
Nobody's broken the cycle.
there's no institutional knowledge of what it's supposed to be.
Right. There are lodges where, you don't have a lot of new brothers in there, or brothers who are seasoned, and you have guys who've been worshipful master for like 10 years. You know what I'm saying? And so it becomes
Not the kid, but
a cult of personality.
Right.
That person's masonry that shows up. And if that person's not doing it right.
yeah, then it just becomes one of those vicious repetitive cycles. So I could tell you, as a child growing up in the inner city, I never learned about finances. So when I first got in the military, my finances and credit were crap. Because I never learned. And that's not an excuse. I just never learned. And then I had to figure it out. So when I got into masonry, I was blessed enough to come into a lodge that had a military lodge, first and foremost. So everybody spoke the same language, right? We were all military, but it was a certain culture there where they taught masonry. So in my mind, I think it's natural to teach masonry. I transferred from that jurisdiction to this jurisdiction, and the culture and the mentality is different.
It is.
But I learned a certain way, tried to transfer that to another jurisdiction, and it didn't work.
Aaron, I know you're going to have opinions on this. This question's for you, but
Me?
do you think, Aaron, do you think that Prince Hall Masonry handcuffs itself with the membership as far as not allowing the plurals? And
Are you a plant?
For the sake of our audience, this is only water in here. At this point with that
For
question,
now.
I wish it was.
even though it's a Friday night,
I think you might be a spy. I have to bet you first now. Yeah, man.
could that ability to have plural membership open up and get some cross-pollination within the jurisdiction to share those good ideas, right?
Tell you a story. I'm gonna tell you a story. I'm trying to make a very long story short story. There was at one point in my life, I was a film and TV producer, and I also wrote comic books and graphic novels. And I got a call from the large federal public broadcasting entity, along with another group of people, to form a cohort to participate in this educational tool building process. They decided the kids in the United States weren't that bright, and they wanted to create new tools. And so it was me. There was a retired Supreme Court justice. There was the local PBS station. There was Activision. A couple of the folks from the one of the big Texas textbook writing companies. It was a pretty solid group. And we decided to create this tool. And the subject matter was the integration of Little Rock, right? And as you can imagine, there were a lot of liberals in this court, like ultra liberals. And one of the people we got to interview was one of the survivors of this moment in Arkansas, in Little Rock. And it happened to be this guy who was now a much older guy, white guy, who was infamous for being in a photo where he is punching a little girl in the face.
Wow.
Okay. And you could see when we heard he was coming there, people were like seething. They were chomping at the bit. He got there and he received a ton of abuse. I mean, there was this one woman who just like let him have it. How dare you? Aren't you ashamed of yourself? She said. And he listened and he let it sort of like die down. And then he said, in a super relaxed way, I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed. I don't have any bad feeling about what I did. If your question is if I do it today, the answer would be no. I'm not the same person. But the person that did it was a person who was taught to do it by his father, his grandfather, his great father, and all those people before them. And this was the culture that I grew up in. This is everything that I knew. If you asked me at the time, I'd have told you the black folks in the neighborhood didn't want these liberals in there, these people changing their way of life either, right? That we were fine. And we were angry because you were forcing this change on us. And if it happened today, I'd be on the other side of the line because I'm a different person. And what made me a different person was exposure. Since that person and this person you see now, I have talked to all kinds of different people in all kinds of different cultures from all different walks of life. So I became a better person because of exposure. Long story, to answer your question in a very aggressive affirmative, if people are kept in small boxes, they keep small mouths.
Thank you.
I mean, an overwhelming yes. Trey, any thoughts on that?
No, it's I was going to mention about, a tool that we all have, in our landmarks as far as the right to travel and how important that is. And I think the conversation is going towards that way with Justin's question about, dual membership and whatnot. But before we even get there, right, I think it's important for us to know thyself before traveling to other places and doing other things. And what I mean by that is knowing and understanding Prince Hall Masonry. I think there's a lot to learn from just interjurisdictional travel from lodge to lodge. To your point earlier that we were talking about with different sects of people, within a lodge. And I think that it is ultimately a reflection of society, and we are ultimately a reflection of society in that, we are drawn to certain characteristics of people that we feel comfortable with, no matter what we have been exposed to, which is a byproduct of our exposure. And I don't think that is something that is negative in that we desire to be in something that is familiar, but it's the challenge. It's us challenging ourselves to get outside of that comfort zone to experience something new. And I don't think that is something that needs to be or has to only be or is exclusively experienced through outside of your jurisdiction travel, if that makes sense. I think there's phenomenal brothers within Prince Hall Masonry. I think there's phenomenal brothers elsewhere in other jurisdictions and, other parts of Masonry. And I think that the first step, if I would recommend it, I remember the excitement. I'm going to tell a little story here in a moment, but I think the first step is traveling inside your jurisdiction, inside your district, right? And I like your Master Mason, your 2-year Master Mason plan, because I started to do that, and Justin and I were doing that with a couple of other cables. Like, it was an eye opener to what it really was and what it is, and then what's possible out there. I remember going up to it was a Smooth Ashler. We went up to a lodge up there in Temecula, and they were doing maybe it wasn't Smooth Ashler. Anyhow, it was a lodge within our jurisdiction, and they were doing an education there. And it was an education non-Masonic related. It was one on insurance, health insurance, and as well as life insurance and whatnot. And I was just that was one of my first experiences traveling as a Master Mason, that I understood that there were people out there in the craft that have things to offer if you just ask the question. So before we talk about rifts and before we talk about interjurisdictional travel, I think it's important to encourage our brothers to what's in their reach within their jurisdiction to experience something a little bit different if unhappy with what it is that they're seeing. And I'll pause there.
I agree. So, Justin, can I throw something back at you?
Sure.
You said something about skin in the game, right? And this also speaks to young brothers who come in. We've had brothers come into our lodge, really good guys, and they didn't come back, or they left, or they got disgruntled because what they found Masonry to be wasn't what they expected. And in our lodge, I like to think that they were actually getting Masonry, but that's not what they wanted, right? So they didn't know what they were getting into from
Sure.
But also, a lot of guys come in and the rent is so low, they don't have to do anything. They don't feel compelled to do it. Right. And I'm gonna get to my question. I'm gonna get to it. So I had a guy talk to me the other day who really wants to come into the lodge, right? And he's a super successful guy. And he says, "So what are the dues?" And I said, $56. He said, you guys aren't even serious.
Yeah.
He said, you guys aren't even serious. And I understand. So he and I are members of clubs together, right? And I know what he's used to paying. There's a club that I don't know, right? And he shows up for it. But and that's big. That's extreme, right? But what do your lodge do?
One is $183 a year, and the other is $595 a year.
Like Greek dudes. Yeah, it's crazy.
The thing about it is that, you know, the thing that's special about that lodge is that everybody's kind of there and we all have the same vision. And we've all come from lodges where the number one obstacle is money, right? You're trying to improve a building, you're trying to do something monetarily. Let's remove that obstacle from ourselves so that we can focus on what's important, and that's us, right? What are the other obstacles? Obstacles are logistically setting up a meal before the lodges. Like, those are very traditional here. I realize that not a lot of lodges in California do that, but it's a big thing here. Like, the guys are big, they like to eat. You know, and it's hard to get stewards to kind of do that. Let's remove that obstacle. Hey, stewards, all you're going to do is you're going to set a reservation for 15 at a restaurant one time a month. Can you manage to do that? You know, so it's a very enjoyable experience. You go in there to talk with the dudes. You know, we have some really smart guys that give some really great educational pieces. We all chime in on it. It's just a really pleasant experience, and we put ourselves in that position because A, that's what we want, and B, we realized that money was the biggest obstacle. So let's remove that from the equation and focus on what's important.
I mean, look, if I had my druthers, we'd pay $100 a month.
Yeah. And there are lodges out there that do it,
And I
especially in
think
California.
Well, no, this would be $1,200 a year, right? But if you're paying $100,
Yeah, $100 a month.
then you're probably more inclined to show up to your meeting and be engaged, right? Because otherwise you're burning your money. Otherwise you're throwing it away.
So I got a question. I have a question. So are we saying the amount of dues you pay is the linchpin to the successful, operations of a lodge?
No.
I think
it's a
it's
motivator.
an obstacle.
Again, it's the motivator, but why does it matter so much? Because to me, that's not what masonry is.
No, and it's not. You're just removing an obstacle so that you can focus on masonry. If you don't have to worry about money, you can worry about the things that are important. So that's just, we don't need to talk about money in our lodge. Like, it's not a thing. We don't need to fundraise. If we want to make a charitable donation, we do it. And we do it with lodge dues. So we don't have to have fundraisers. We don't have to do these types of things. We just do it because it's the right thing to do. And we don't have to have a lot of conversation surrounding it. Like, we don't have to do a pancake breakfast fundraiser or a spaghetti dinner or a fish fry or anything like that. Hey, a brother has a senior. We're going to take care of that senior, and it's done. It's done. We just do it because we have the means to do it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And there's many lodges, to include my own, right, that will, we get a letter or we hear about someone in a hard time, and we feel compelled to provide a donation or to do something for them. And yeah, we have that option, to do that. But on the flip side of that too, I think that there's value in doing things collectively as a group of men, such as working towards your goal to contribute to something, right? I think there's value in that as well. So that might be something that is gained by increased dues, but is lost by increased dues because there's not people who join the fraternity specifically for doing those type of things, those type of charitable things, right? So I think it's just a slippery slope, and I'm still trying to understand what it is that we are getting at with regards to increased dues and how that correlates to, increased membership or participation.
I can speak to it a little bit, right? And I don't think that this is probably true for everybody, and it's probably not true in all instances, right? But there is, you've heard it, right? Like, the persons that pay, if they don't attach value to a thing, they oftentimes will not treat that thing as though it's valuable, right? So this isn't. I don't think my posit was that this is the solution. It was that this is, I think, in my lodge solution, something that can lead to brothers feeling a little bit more attached, feeling more value in the thing that they say that they love, showing up to meetings, being more engaged because they are paying for it, and they're not paying $2 for it, right?
Yeah, but I think that there's more. Sorry to interject, but I think that there's more to it than a monetary value. I think that I think the intrinsic value that we're talking about is the thing that we are trying to spark in those who participate in masonry, right? That's what we're really talking about.
Right.
I don't need you to pay for it. I just need you to want to be here, and that this is something that you've committed yourself. You've taken an obligation to commit yourself, your time, and some of your energies to. And I just hope that our conversation, that we don't lose sight of that in particular, and that not everyone can afford $100 a month, $300 a year. There's brothers out there who add immense value to the craft and have a whole lot of things to offer that I feel as though if we were to, most lodges were to do that, you would ultimately, next out the opportunity for those who contribute because we're all, again, on the level. Right.
Let me say this real quick. Yeah, let me say this real quick, because I've heard all you guys, and all you guys have valid points. But again, when you're talking about these points, you're speaking about it from an individual standpoint. So you're not speaking about it from a macro. This is a micro look. Literally, every lodge is its own micro look, saying in this lodge we do X, Y, and Z, and that lodge they do X, Y, and Z, but not all lodges are equal, in that all brothers won't pay the same and all lodges dues won't be the same, because the culture, like in Justin's lodge, the culture is different. They don't have to worry about money, but it's something that they've established.
And that was what we decided to do collectively.
As a collective. And, so it was a unified decision.
And it was needed.
Right.
There's only 15 of us.
But let me say this, because we were supposed to give brothers some tools. Let me give you one tool. I just started reading this book and I recommend it to everybody. It's called The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. Right? Just started reading it, and I'm telling you, 2 chapters into the book, there's so many profound things. One, she has a 5-second rule, and I won't go into that this episode, but I will go into Let Them. Now, when we talk about brothers and how they feel about certain things, what happens? We give people energy and we try to control people. We can't. Only ones we can control is ourselves. So Mel Robbins had this thing where her thing is like, let them. If there's something going wrong, let it be. I can't control it.
Yeah.
Let them. Right? Let them hate this. Let them be mad. And so what I'm doing by that is taking my own power base back. And I literally have had to try that in the last couple of days. And it is an amazing turnaround in your mentality. So if brothers just let it be, but contribute. The point I'm trying to make is contribute what you're good at contributing, and it'll eventually manifest itself into something positive.
Yeah.
That's the fix. That's how we do it. Because if we get wrapped up on everything else that's going on, we lose sight of what we're supposed to be doing anyway. So I just want to kind of throw that out there to summate this. I want to move to the second point, and I want to get to the Constitution. Yeah. We're on no time limit by any means. This second talking point.
Yeah, that was a good tool, by the way.
The second talking point, really, let's think about this. And I want you to hear me clearly, but the second talking point is membership declining and apathy, silent epidemic. Now, let me give you some examples of that. As we think about lodges, our numbers are really down. It was alarming at our session this year to hear our numbers now in the 1,600 range to what they were 15, 16 years ago. They were up in the 9,000-10,000.
Oof.
So I think that anyway, that's a definite attrition, right? But here's some examples of our situation: declining membership, the silent epidemic. One example is dwindling attendance, like we've been talking about, right? Dwindling attendance. And how do we motivate brothers to attend? And then younger members are vanishing after they get raised. I say that to say this, that we don't give brothers a reason to come back. You guys can take that how you want to.
Agreed.
And we can debate that, but I want us to debate that, right? And then I also say that brothers are ghosting their lodges, obviously, if they're not coming back. Stagnated ritual work, stagnated ritual work, right? Because ritual work does get stagnated. It gets so antiquated that we're just robots. We're just moving like Masonic robots. When do we get animated? When do we change that narrative, right? So stagnated ritual work, no educational nights, and zero modern relevancy. What say you? Hey, man, I told you we was talking today.
And if you don't give people a reason to be in a place, come. And there's so many options today. right? Like people have there was a point you didn't have that many options. You're gonna be, you know, in this kind of lodge or that kind of lodge or in a bowling league or whatever, right?
Right.
Now you can, man, you have 500 different movie channels. You know, you just so much access. Instagram, people, their faces are in it, especially young people. Young people are, you know, the TikTok. If we're not giving them something fun to be aspirational about, right? Like, what is a Mason to that? What's special about a Mason? What's elevated about being a Mason? What is a little kid looking at and saying, I want to be that? Because that dude is so unique. That dude is so special. That dude is so much more than everybody else I see in my neighborhood. I want to be like that. How are we giving them that? And then what are we saying to them? What is the educational opportunity? Right?
Yeah.
You know, guy called me earlier this week and he was really bothered. And he said, man, we got to figure out how to guard our West Gate. Trey, you're not going to like this conversation. You're not going to like it. But he was like, how do we guard our West Gate? He said, because we're letting everybody. And because of that, it is creating a pedestrian order. It's just a nothing thing. It's not special.
You guys are a degree mill.
Correct. And that, like, we're bringing guys in, they're getting their third degree in 2 or 3 months, right? Like, it's just, there's no
Hey,
attach.
hold on real quick, Aaron. Hold on, brother. Let me say something. First
Yeah.
of all, I 1000% agree with you.
Yes, sir.
1000% on that one too, because I was writing a note based on what you said. I believe that quality over quantity. I believe less is more in a lot of things. When you're talking about anything, really, less is more in life. You have too many things, you can't enjoy them. Less is more, and I wonder, if to grow we shrink at the same time. Like maybe there's too many lodges, right? Too many options, because to your point about the many different channels, you have different flavors, and that kind of makes it, non-appetizing, because I have so many choices. So what do you think about that?
I think that if you have a lodge that has 3 people in it, 5 people in it, you can't actually open your lodge, or you're struggling to do that, you very seriously should consider
Consolidating.
the lodge,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You can't make that decision on your own. There is a person who has a job within the order who should be shrinking you, right? Like, and to the other point, I think that we want dues in the lodge. We want bodies in the lodge. We want people coming in. So we're rushing people through this process. We're happy to take on anybody. My lodge laughed at me and I was like, man, we should have an IQ test.
I think we should do a Myers-Briggs.
I think so. Look.
Yeah, Myers-Briggs test on everybody.
Look, that's just me. That's just it might not be fair, but also I think somebody just said it, right? You're going to have different lodges that have different flavors for different people. If I had a lodge that was charging $100 a month and creating some sort of set of qualifiers before guys could come in, and then like deciding I want to take 6 months to a year to bring them in, and cats were like, that's not for me. Man, there's another lodge not that far from here. Their dues are $100 a year. You know what I mean? And they don't care. Come in. If you smoke a good cigar and tell a good joke, you're the perfect Mason for them.
That's fine.
But again, it's the culture, right? We keep going right back. It's like a revolving door. We keep coming back to the same point, right? It's the culture of each lodge is going to take on its own identity, and then the brothers that are in there, they have to be, especially the brothers that know better. If you know better, you do better. Let's just keep it simple. If you know better, you do better. But if you know it's wrong, you don't say anything, then you're just as wrong. So then we get into our ethical dilemmas, right? Yeah, it's a whole new can of worms. But again, it's the truth.
Let me ask this.
But
Sorry. I was just going to ask, this is kind of a rhetorical question, but how do we lose Masons? What are the two main ways that we lose our Masons?
Clicks and lack of education. But don't ask me, because
I'm talking about like physically losing guys from the books. Trey, you're a secretary. You should be able to answer this.
Die is one of the main.
They die, right? And the average age of a Mason in the United States is 65 years old. We're getting younger, but that is one thing that we cannot control. We cannot control deaths. What are the other ways that we lose Masons?
We bore them. We ignore them.
Lack of dues. A lot of brothers don't pay dues. They just stop paying dues.
Suspension due to non-payment of dues,
Absolutely.
right? And so we can't control deaths. We can't control suspension due to non-payment of dues. How do we do that? Because that is the only way, right? This is very simple math in a lodge. You have deaths, you have your degrees, right? Which should theoretically pace those deaths in your lodge, depending. The X factor is suspensions. So I guess if we want to grow our jurisdiction, our lodges, we have to prevent those.
Why do you do it?
How do we prevent those?
Well, why do you do it? Why? So if you've got guys who are not paying their dues in your lodge,
Yeah.
why do you not suspend them?
No, I'm not saying you don't, but how do we influence them to pay dues? And I think all roads are going to go back to lodge culture, right?
Well, no, I don't think so. I'll pose this question in return to that question.
Okay.
So why do we need to grow? Why does masonry need to grow?
The life cycle. It's a natural occurrence that the minute you were born, you begin to die. So it's a life cycle. So your cycle's going to end. Everybody's cycle's going to end.
If it doesn't continue to grow, or at least to Justin's point, if the brothers are dying or they're not paying dues, your lodges shrink to the point that they just vanish.
I just told you our attrition is upwards of 90% right now. I can't really stress without joking around. Like that's alarming.
Okay, so perfect. Both of y'all businessmen, right? So if you have, what do you do if this is a business, you're running this business and you don't have, you're having this bleed out? What do you do?
I can tell you what I did. So we're having this problem. Brothers weren't paying dues, and our dues aren't that high. And so we had to ask the question, why aren't you paying your dues? What's going on? Like, what's happening? And we heard for some of the guys, it just was too high. It was too much money to pay at once. They had other things that I'm going to try not to sound cynical, but they had other things that were important to them. They had other things that were priorities or ahead of this lodge. So what we did is we created a payment system. Number one, we made it so that they could pay with just about anything.
Right.
We gave them one place to pay. You could pay with your credit card. You could pay with PayPal. You could pay with everything but EBT. And if they told me they wanted EBT, I'd try to figure that out. And then the other big thing is we made it such that they could pay it over time, right? So as opposed to paying that $256 at the top of the year, you pay it's like $22 or $23, right? And the miraculously dues payments went.
Because you did an auto payment.
Because you didn't. It's set it and forget it. You put your card in, and it automatically debits that debit card or credit card every month, and a relatively small.
Yeah, it's the same as your Netflix bill.
Yeah.
So to that point, do you think that, I think this is another tool that we're talking about. Do you think, because I know Justin, you got some experience with this, like decentralized versus centralized management of dues payment? And we'll just summarize it. Some is that, right? Yeah. Do you think that that's something a Grand Lodge should do?
Well, it's I can tell you in my jurisdiction in which I work, we do it. It's called dues invoicing program. Lodges can opt in if they would like to. And once they opt in, we take care of all the dues payments for them. So we send out all the notifications. If they're behind, we contact them. They get printed letters, they get emails, they get text messages to pay their dues. On average, lodges that are enrolled in the dues invoicing program, their lodges pay at about 85 to 90% rate. Lodges that do not participate in the program are about a 65 to a 70. So it works. It does work. We also have auto payment through Grandview. I don't know if you guys have it or not, but guys in my lodge that have issues with dues, we put them on auto payment. And there are other ways you can deal with it. Like instead of suspending a guy for non-payment of dues, a good tip and trick I recommend to our lodges is if you can't pay the full amount, just have them pay whatever your per capita is, right? So they pay their own per capita payment and the lodge doesn't sink, because this is the problem, right? Guys don't pay dues. Well, that per capita payment is coming up and the Grand Lodge is going to get paid. They're gonna get paid either way.
Yeah. Right.
So if you don't suspend them and they're not paying dues, the lodge is fronting the money on that guy's behalf. So if you just have him pay his per capita bill, whatever that is, right? The lodge doesn't lose any money and you don't lose a member. And the hope is that he will eventually come back and do something within the lodge, but that's been very successful for us. I do
I
want to say one thing that, and this has not been published yet, but one of the Grand Lodges, which I'm associated with, had the first positive membership year since 1954. And it's a big deal. And you guys are going to see all the stuff. They're going to prepare a press release and all that stuff. And it was all done through preventing suspensions. Masons are pissed off and they don't pay their dues because the only time they hear from their lodge is when you send them a bill or tell them to pay their bills. If your lodge does that, you got a huge problem on your hands because and I hear it from them. Like, the only time I hear from you guys is when you want money. You know, you're gonna lose a guy. So, you know, that personal contact is everything. I highly recommend, if you know, you should be divvying the lodge roster up amongst your officers, and guys should take 10 or 20 and they should just be calling them.
Yep. Absolutely.
Brother, how you doing? Haven't heard from you. Haven't seen you in a while. Hey, we got this event going on. Just wanted to touch base, so that the only correspondence they're getting from the lodge is not just a bill, because that's how you lose guys and they're pissed off and they don't come back, and those guys can't recover them. And reach out to your suspended guys too.
Yeah.
Reach out to them, because you'd be surprised. A lot of guys that are suspended, they maybe want to come back, but they don't feel welcome. You know, so dust that list off once in a while. Contact those guys. Hey, man, just want to check in with you. If you're ever interested in coming back, we would be happy to reinstate you. We reinstated 500 guys last year just by calling them and saying, "What's up? How are you?" It was very easy.
Are you a member of your Grand Lodge?
Yes. Yep.
So I think that the program that you spoke about is awesome. Requirement for that program to work is functional infrastructure on the
Sure.
Grand Lodge level.
Yep.
There we go.
You have to be able to build and execute a function like that. It's a complicated function.
It is.
I'm going to stop there.
Yeah. But again, it kind of plays into what we were talking about earlier, you know, the dual membership thing, and just understanding that it just, if you live in a box, right? If you put yourself in this box, that's where you're going to remain. You're just going to stay in that box. You're never going to grow.
Yeah.
We just got to grow. We just got to get outside the box. We just, as a Grand Lodge, and I think this is not just here. This is Prince Hall Masonry everywhere, because we're not the only ones with this problem.
No.
Sure.
We are in this box. We put ourselves in this box, and we have so much pride that we don't want to listen to reason.
That's the thing, because you don't have to have dual membership. You don't have to have
No.
membership to be able to join in with another existent body that has a solution that is working. To just say, hey, listen, look, I had this conversation with one of the past grandmasters in our jurisdiction, well, in the state lodge. And, you know, my thing is, look, it's great for you to let us join in with some of the things that you guys are doing, but it would be better if you would help us build our own systems, right? Like, if you see that we're flagging, if we're falling down someplace, let us learn how to stand that up. And you know, I'm not going to say that it's ego. I'm not going to say that it's pride. I don't know what it is, but I do know that those conversations should be had. Like, I should be able to call Justin and say, hey, yo, bro, break down for me how this is working. Give me the whole plan.
Yep.
Our egos is preventing us from doing that, though. Let me give you an example. Go ahead, Aaron. When you finish, I want to go back to Justin's Grand Lodge.
I just, like, it's our egos is too big of a phrase.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. That's fair.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not our egos. There are plenty of us. I hear from brothers every day.
Mhm.
Love to see this kind of, you know, joint work. This is masonry.
It
We're
is.
holding hands with each other across this bridge, a bridge that probably shouldn't even be there, but a bridge that's there nonetheless. And we're improving ourselves together with systems that work. We're not trying to figure it out on our own or saying, that's how they do it. That's nonsense. It's not.
Yeah, we can't go us against them. So I just remember was it October, Justin? We went to your session? Was it
Yeah.
October? We
Yeah.
went to your session, and I just remember sitting there, and I won't say what the numbers were. I just said that the numbers came up on the screen. My mouth hit the floor. And I looked at whatever the percent, so it was like something like to the tune of 4.25% that this Grand Lodge is living off their own interest. They're not even touching your principal. They're literally living off their own interest.
Can't do it.
That was amazing. That's amazing, right? Because the principal is growing. Staff is fully funded and paid very well. And you're only living off your interests. And you own multiple buildings, right? So again, your equity is crazy. Your assets are crazy.
The interesting thing about membership is a lot of people, when they think membership, they're counting guys in suits going to meetings, right? Your memberships are your memberships. So the state in which I live right now, I'm counted as 2 because I'm a member of 2. Both of those lodges pay per capita on me, right? So it's not the physical amount of guys, it's the number of memberships it's counting all the memberships. So if you got a guy, like some of these guys are like 10, 12 lodges they're a member of per capita.
Every time.
So it's interesting.
Brings up the conversation of dual membership again.
I'm not trying to.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it does, but it doesn't. It's an interesting tactic. I guess I never thought about that, but that's an interesting tactic, right? We're essentially double dipping. It's the same person. We're dividing that money amongst multiple lodges for the same people and getting double the amount. That's genius.
A resolution about this. I know this dude. I've heard of that. He wrote a resolution.
I don't like that guy.
Listen, I know a lot of guys who probably don't like
I
that.
don't like that guy.
I know somebody who wrote, and part of the rationale for it was, if you do it, you're going to get more memberships.
Correct.
You're gonna, like, now, to be honest with you,
Dues cards, members, dues cards. That's who you're
you
counting.
know what the honest pushback was? Can't do that, because if we do that, then they're gonna take us over.
They don't need to.
If they
Well-
wanted to, they would do it.
They and we get us in trouble.
So-
Wait a minute. So was the resolution for dual memberships inside the jurisdiction or dual membership
Well,
across
if-
your
If
jurisdiction?
I knew what this was, Trey, if I knew who this was, I'd know more specifics about it. But if I knew what it was probably a resolution that spoke to extra and intra jurisdictional
Got you.
There are
Okay.
states that do it.
and plural. So the idea is, if you're inside your own jurisdiction, that you could join multiple lodges within your own jurisdiction. And we have something that is similar to that, but it is not that.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was to be able to join a lodge in another jurisdiction. And there are rules around it, right? Like, so I don't know, Justin, how you guys do it, but it was such that if I couldn't be in the line in 2 different lodges.
You can't hold elected office in
Can't
two
hold
different-
elected-
and that's pretty universal.
Associate member.
Right. No, it's more than associate member.
No, I'm just saying most people just have associate membership over
exactly.
here and then full membership over here.
Right. But I'm saying in this situation, you have to pledge to a lodge. This is your home lodge. If you want to switch your home lodge, you could do that, right? But you would only be able to be an elected officer in the lodge that you have chosen as your home lodge.
And those rules are pretty universal amongst all jurisdictions, just because they don't want a guy being master of 3 lodges.
That's why they call it common sense.
I mean, so again, that's kind of a perfect segue to our new segment.
Uh-oh.
It's the constitutional corner, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's what it's all kind of pivoting on, right? We talked about it at the beginning. And again, let me go back and apologize. The God mind. I was on some BS earlier. I said the good mind,
It's
the
okay.
God mind.
It should be also a good mind.
It is a good mind. It's a good read, but it's the God mind. And I just want to say, before we pivot to the constitutional corner, which I'm excited about, by the way, I am very humbled. I was very shocked a couple Fridays ago getting a letter being elected as a grand lecturer for General Grand Conference. It blew me away. I just want to tell everybody that for the people that were involved in that, thank you publicly, because this will be published on YouTube, and it's time to get to work. So as I say that, we pivot to the constitutional corner, and I really want this segment to be beneficial for members. So I'll punt it to Aaron, and this is his segment.
All right. So I'm gonna look at my screen as I do this. You may or may
That's
not,
fine.
but so yeah, this is the constitutional corner. This segment is designed to help us understand what I believe to be the scaffolding that holds our organization together. This is the rule and the law. Whereas the ritual is our sacred secret, this is the thing that helps us understand what we are and how we are meant to operate and what our roles are in any particular role, etc. So I'm just going to read a little bit, okay? So the Constitution is more than a rule book. It's the backbone of our jurisdiction. It defines who we are, how we're governed, and who we govern and how we govern ourselves. It reflects our values, preserves our traditions, and charts the course for future generations of Masons. Super important. This episode, segment 1, is all about setting the stage. We're going to explore the purpose, history, and structure of our Constitution so that as we move through this series, We're grounded in context. I always wish we could have questions on this thing, but maybe you guys can ask questions.
Oh, I will.
We can, but when we go live, probably future segments, then we'll have a Q&A. We'll open it up for Q&A.
All right. So
Definitely open the chat up.
part one, what is the Constitution? The Constitution is the supreme legal document governing our jurisdiction. I'll say it again. It is the supreme legal, all caps, document governing our jurisdiction. It is the charter, the law, and the covenant that binds us together as one Masonic family. It contains not only the rules and regulations by which we operate, but it also guides our moral and ritualistic practices. It empowers Grand Lodge officers. It, by the way, through the craft. And we'll get into that because the craft, this is a document that should be built and ultimately continuously revised by the craft. It defines the rights and duties of subordinate lodges and protects the rights of every Master Mason. I'm going to say it again. It protects the rights of every Master Mason. However, it can only do that if you know what it is, if you know what your rights are. You can't speak to your rights and you can't protect your own rights if you have no idea what they are. Perhaps most, or more importantly, it connects us to our ancestral Masonic lineage, ensuring that we continue the sacred work begun by our founders, men of resilience, clarity, and divine purpose. This is interesting because during this section, one of the things I'd like to do is find and share some of our older constitutions. And it's important to be able to say that because again, the Constitution is a living document. It does change, and it has changed several times, since I think in this 170 years that we've been here in this jurisdiction, right? Part two, historical background. To understand the significance of the Constitution, we must remember where it comes from. This is what I'm getting at. I've got to be careful. So I wrote some things. I'm going to try to read over them. Our jurisdiction traces its roots. Obviously our jurisdiction is Prince Hall jurisdiction, but it traces its roots to a broader legacy of African-American Masonic struggle and triumph, where the first African-American lodge was chartered in 1775 by Prince Hall and 14 other free Black men in Boston. Despite facing legal exclusion, they persevered, and the movement grew into what we now know as Prince Hall Masonry. I have opinions about that, but we'll talk about it in another segment. Our jurisdiction, officially constituted in 1855, stands as one of the oldest Masonic institutions. I didn't say Prince Hall. One of the oldest Masonic institutions west of the Mississippi. Over the decades, our Constitution has been revised, reaffirmed, and strengthened by generations of wise and worthy brothers. We're currently on the 2015 edition, though that should be changing shortly, right? This edition, we believe, represents the most comprehensive and current expression of our collective will. And that statement, again, is vital. It's so important. Our Constitution is a comprehensive and current expression of our collective will, all of us in this jurisdiction. Not one person, not 4 or 5 people, the entire body. So then part three, why it matters. Why should I care about the Constitution? I'm not a Grand Lodge officer. Here's the truth. The Constitution affects you. Whether you're a newly raised Master Mason or a worshipful master presiding over your lodge, it dictates your dues status, your rights during elections, your pathway to advancement, the structure of your lodge meetings, and even how disciplinary proceedings, it says are handled. I'm going to say should be handled. It protects your right to vote, your right to be heard, and your right to seek redress. It defines how decisions may be chosen and how justice is served within our fraternity. Understanding it makes you not just a better Mason, but a better leader, a better teacher, and a better protector of the craft. How it's structured. So in a quick review of the Constitution and how it's organized, first, it begins with a preamble that declares our allegiance to the principles of Prince Hall Freemasonry and outlines our dedication to moral improvement, brotherly love, and spiritual growth. All really big concepts. We were trying to, I think we were speaking to that a little bit earlier. It proceeds into articles. These are the foundational legal structures like articles of incorporation, membership, Grand Lodge powers, and Grand Officer roles. Many of these articles contain sections and chapters that define specific offices, duties, and procedures. It also includes forms, appendices, and resolutions adopted over time to further clarify processes and principles. So if there's something that you need to do, or if there's some form that you're looking for, you might just find what you're looking for attached to your Constitution, right? The resolutions, we'll talk about that in more depth over the course of this series, but resolutions are the means by which you as an individual, the craft as a whole, has to reshape and reform to express yourself and what you really want our order to look like today versus maybe what it looked like in 2015. The entire document is dense. Yes, it is, but also rich with logic, order, and light. Our job over the next several episodes or segments is to make it digestible. We want you to understand. Part 5, what to expect from this series. This series will be divided into short episodes, each exploring one vital segment of the Constitution. We'll look at membership and jurisdiction. We'll look at Grand Lodge elections. We'll look at Lodge officer qualifications. We'll look at the duties of officers like the Grand Master and the Grand Lecturer. We'll look at ritual uniformity and the meaning of proficiency. We'll look at Masonic trials and discipline, and even the role of unwritten law and precedent. And that's a big thing, right? Because a lot of times people will say, well, it's not in the Constitution, but we've been doing it like this for years. And that does matter. That is an actual part of Masonic Constitution, that this is an accepted approach, but it also can be changed. And by the way, Raul, I didn't put those things in there on purpose. It just is a part of the Constitution. Our approach will be educational. We will do our very level best to remain respectful and to be engaging. We'll do our best not only to explain the letter of the law, but also to share the spirit and purpose behind each clause. And of course, if you're listening as a current or future worshipful master, grand officer, or Masonic scholar, this series should very deeply benefit you. If you're just seeking to better understand the obligation you've taken as a Mason, also in the right place. Part 6 and the final part. A call to study. Study of the Constitution is an obligation of every Master Mason. Again, I'll say, studying and knowing your Constitution is your obligation if you are a Master Mason. If you don't understand the body that you are a part of, and the Constitution is it's the explainer document, then you are missing the entire point. You're missing out on your rights. You're missing out on your ability to help craft this thing that we are a part of. You're missing out on the ability to understand why a person may be doing this or that thing or not doing. It's not just about reading it. As we talk about this is about proficiency. You can read a document, you can even remember the words in the document, but if you don't understand it, if you don't know it, it is absolutely useless to you and to all the people around you that might otherwise rely on it. It's also about being able to teach it because you know it. And then maybe more importantly, it's about living it. Because when you know it and you know it deeply, then you're able to not just profess it, but you're able to be it. And if you are being this thing, then you will be being Masonic, and you will be being that thing that may be drawing new brothers, new members to us as an order. As our ancient charges say, let no brother be ignorant of the laws of his order. This Constitution, there's going to be some complaint, right? Because I know I never received a Constitution, and there are going to be a lot of people that say, I never got one. I never got it. I never received it. There is a simple answer, is that it's available to you on Grandview. You can download it. And the version that's there now has markup in it because there are some as of yet unaccepted. I think that that's still true. I could be wrong. They may have been accepted, but is my understanding there may be yet unaccepted changes, but the body is there and you can download it. I would suggest download it, print it, and then write it, study it, put margin notes, put questions. If you see something that you don't like, do that, and then have conversations with the officers in your lodge. Have conversations with Grand Lodge officers that you may know, so that you can get engaged in a conversation, so that we can live in a world, and maybe more specifically, a masonry that we can all love and be proud of. To that, this was the first segment of the Constitutional Corner. In the next episode, we're going to talk about membership and jurisdiction, who we are, what makes a lodge legal, and how we're bound together as a statewide and sovereign Masonic body. Until then, stay vigilant, walk uprightly, and seek more light. I am Brother Aaron Boyd. Peace, power.
Brothers, what do you, Trey and Justin, what do you guys think about that? Because, when new Masons come in, we never talk about the Constitution. Not ever. I can't remember a time in the lodge unless we were arguing about a certain point that the Constitution even came up. I'm just being honest.
There are a lot of jurisdictions, and I don't know if yours is one of them because I haven't looked at that document in a while, but the master of the lodge is charged to discuss a portion of the Constitution, also known as a Masonic Code in other jurisdictions. So not only, so we have to talk about it, and to be honest with you, Raul, if it wasn't for you, I don't think me and Trey would have gotten a copy of it. And equally is kind of egregious. A lot of Masons don't have copies of their local lodge bylaws either.
Right.
They've never seen it before. They don't know what's in it.
They signed it though.
Sometimes they don't.
He did.
They should sign it, right? They should sign the lodge bylaws when they get raised. But I think, and I hope we're able to work it in, but, being able to kind of discuss the relationship between your Constitution or Masonic Code and your bylaws, right? Because the Constitution is an overarching document that kind of governs how business is conducted in the jurisdiction, but you can make your bylaws more tight. If there's something you're looking for specifically, as long as it's in accordance with the Constitution of your state or of your jurisdiction, you can make those bylaws as tight as you want it to be. So for example, I'm actually in the process of doing a bylaws rewrite for my lodge right now. And one of the things that was important to me, that was what we did in Prince Hall, was you cannot sit in a seat until you've shown proficiency as a Master Mason. We had a bunch of guys in line that had never done their Master Mason proficiency, and it kind of bugged me, and I had a discussion about it. I'm like, look, I think if you sit in these seats, you should at a minimum have to do that. We're building into our bylaws. So it's something as a lodge we decided that was important to us, and we're building it in. So you can take that overarching document and make it tighter and kind of tailor it. And if you do your bylaws right, you can have kind of some guidance for that master or for the pedestal officers, for whoever, on what to do if this thing happens. So a good example, again, a lodge meeting fell on a federal holiday. Nobody can make it. We amended our bylaws, said if it falls on a federal holiday, on the next day, we are able to hold our stated meeting without asking for dispensation to have that meeting. So I think that's important. We kind of unpack how the bylaws relate to the Constitution, Masonic Code, whatever you got in your jurisdiction.
You just said, Trey, and for both of you, Justin, you just said something that a lot of brothers don't know. You said an amendment to your bylaws. Brothers don't know that there's a difference between an amendment and a bylaw change.
Yep.
Right. Amendment only takes 2/3 vote, but you can do that inside your lodge.
Right. Yep.
So again, this is what we're going to start to talk about: the amendments and then bylaws changes. Two distinctly different things, same concept, but two distinctly different things. Go ahead, Trey.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I'm really excited about Brother Aaron running us through what are we calling it? We're calling it the
Constitution.
Constitutional Corner. I think that this is going to be a very, very insightful journey. I think that it's going to be very informative, and this is probably something that's going to be withstanding in that, brothers can get educated. This can be a stepping stone eventually for them to be able to come back to and refer to and understand. So I think this is a huge thing for just masonry in general, because I haven't seen anything like this before, and I'm really excited to be a part of it. And you best believe I'll have a bunch of questions after I do reread my section that we're going to go over. With that, hey, brother Aaron, are we going to do this as so as we go live, and I know we're going to have these guys on live, right? Do we want to give them, a particular chapters and things to read, to preface the conversation, to enrich the conversation that we're going to have about these respective sections as we go through, as I understand it, these 6 different sections?
Absolutely, we are. So I actually have this thing broken down into its segments already. So each one of the segments is already done, and there are some instructional notes that go along with each one of those. So we can pass some of those out in advance of our podcast, or make it available.
Yeah.
Maybe as a download somehow after, because it is so important. And I think we should probably even attach a digital version of the Constitution so brothers can get it.
Yeah.
If
they're within this jurisdiction, because there'll be brothers outside.
Yeah, there will be brothers outside, but look, most our Constitution, for the most part, is probably going to be in alignment, at least structurally, with most other constitutions across there may be some minor changes, but just even the basic concept will be helpful. And again, this isn't a secret document. It's illegal, right?
Yeah.
Like, so we can share it and discuss it freely, and we should do.
I would say it's probably more in alignment with Prince Hall Grand Lodges. State Grand Lodges are a little different, but I think that there's going to be value there, though. And, you know, I think that this will, by doing this, we erase some of that bum scoop that's just out there, flat out bad information that's not true.
Yeah.
And we talked earlier about the institutional knowledge. Everybody's kind of learned the wrong way in your lodge. Like, this may be a way to kind of correct that course, right? Of like, this is how we're actually supposed to be conducting business.
We just had something occur in our last grand session. You know, there is an overarching belief in our jurisdiction that in order to be elected to the Grand Lodge, you have to be a past master. The Constitution is very firm that that is not true. You need to be a voting member of the Grand Lodge. We had the parliamentarians stand up and correct the record, right? But it's so deeply ingrained in brothers, and understandably, right? This is what we know. Now, mind you, we talked about time-honored tradition as well, right? Like, that matters too. But then when you do something that sets a precedence, then you have a precedence for it, right? And moving forward from that point. But so in our jurisdiction, the Constitution is very clear that you need to be either a past master, a worshipful master, or a warden. That's for the voting members.
And I just remember going down that beaten path. What was read on the floor was the requirements to be a past master, not the fact that a past master can run. There's two distinctly different things, and we were kind of mixing and matching based on, you know, this ideology and this is how we've always done it.
But I speak to this issue also, right? If the body, let's say the body's like, you know what? I understand that the Constitution says that all you need to do is be a voting member. I disagree with that. I don't like that. I want brothers to be past masters because I think there's something in being a past master that gives you something that is more beneficial. Like, if I know you've done that, then I have more confidence in you as this thing, right? Then you have the right and ability, as per, again, the Constitution, to write a resolution.
Right.
And you get 5 past masters or your lodge to sign on to this. And you present this in a time, and there's a date, by a certain date.
Process.
Correct. And then you have the right to not have it be silenced. You have the right to have it go to the floor and have the body either agree with you or not. And it is vitally important. We talk about civic engagement, right? Civic engagement as a concept in every aspect of your life, whether it's in the lodge or in your community, is vital. It's a muscle, and we need to learn how to flex it. No one else may agree with you, but you might put something out there. There might be a piece of something that you put out there that sparks a thought, that creates a revolution that is vital, that is necessary. And no one else was able to say it, or nobody else was willing to say it. Everybody else was afraid of whoever it was that they needed to say it to. So this constitutional education, I think, is very important. But the most important thing that people will get from it, aside from knowing what's in it, is the ability to know how to change it.
But this, I'm telling you, brothers, that this is going to open up Pandora's box. And why I say that, because we're going to dive into conversations about the Anderson's Constitution. We're going to dive into the landmarks. This is going to open up a lot of portals for brothers to really understand and be intimately familiar. And they're going to be hungry and craving to go look at the Constitution just to validate what we're saying and what's being said here. Again, as we dive into this over the next, few months, whatever it takes, 6 months, whatever long we feel like it's going to take, because we're probably going to wind up, if time permits, doing this every couple of weeks, do at least 2 episodes a month now to kind of really roll this out. We'll just have to make time. We'll have to come up with a Google Calendar or something so we can delineate the time, because we're all kind of busy. But this is going to be good. I had thought about this, and I approached Aaron with it, and he was on board with it, and then told you guys were obviously on board with it as well. But we need this.
Justin, I would love it also as I'm doing this, if you would speak, because you raise a really good point, right? And I talk about it a little bit, but your lodge bylaws are essentially your lodge constitution.
Yep.
And I can tell you most lodges in our jurisdiction are antiquated, that they need to be brought up. And brothers need to know how they can speak to them. Same way, right? So it'd be great if you would speak to that.
Yeah. I mean, it's you should be dusting that thing off once in a while and taking a look at it, because what may have worked for your lodge 10 years ago probably doesn't work for you anymore. There are things in there. So I think guys are scared of the work, to be honest with you. And I think they're scared to dive into something that they're unfamiliar with, or they don't know not a lot about. But I think that by doing that, you really learn a lot, and isn't that the whole point of this masonry thing is to learn something?
That is the whole point. Be better. Our
Yeah.
bylaws aren't that long. Our lodge bylaws aren't that. I mean, they're they have depth to them, but they're not that long. You know what I mean? And they really just define the things that you should know.
Yeah.
I think, and I think that having, a shorter set of bylaws isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? That gives you flexibility, to make decisions and do some things. Again, it just depends on the lodge and what the needs are and what's important. The one I'm rewriting it for, I think we're at 4 or 5 pages,
Yeah.
but my small lodge, we only got 15 guys. That thing's a page. It basically just gives you the information for the dues. That's about it.
That was my bylaws. I said they weren't that long. They're like 15 pages.
Yeah,
Yeah, but that's still really not that long, though. To
No.
be quite honest with you, there's some bylaws that are 50, 60, 70 pages, 80, 100 pages, right? And then most brothers are discouraged from reading all those pages. And let's just be honest, that's what's actually happening. They're like, oh shit, this is a lot to read. I'm not reading.
But
sure.
sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Trey.
Now, I was going to say at the same time, because, I was a participant in our bylaws, rewriting those. And, the first year, I think you remember it, Justin, we were reading it. We are like, what is this? Like, we don't, this doesn't make sense, and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
And what I will say is that being a participant in that committee and learning what it took to get it through, the Grand Lodge and get it through was a thing that, opened up my eyes to that. It's more than just understanding the Constitution. You have to be able to persuade others. What do you call it? A little bit of exercise, a bit of rhetoric, in order to spark the understanding of why it's so important to update and to change those things. And I think that this episodes of us going through the Constitutional Corner is going to arm those brothers who have that desire to understand the mechanisms in which to get things initiated. And it's like, ultimately, it's not hard, but it's hard, if that makes sense, because of all the elements that you don't know. And I think that this is going to bridge that gap for a lot of lodges, especially a lot of young lodges or lodges that have very large dynamics, in that, you have a lot of younger guys in the craft who may not really truly understand and never had to open up that Constitution. So I'm really excited for this, and I'm all about this, doing it twice a month. Not necessarily to rush through this, but I think that it's going to be beneficial to build upon it month after month, similar to other educational series that Brother Raul has put on that have been nothing short of phenomenal.
You said a really important thing, Aaron, and that's that, any member has the right to change something by presenting a resolution to be considered by the Grand Lodge. I would argue that a lot of Masons don't know that that's even possible. So just in your introduction, I think that there's value there, right? I bet you a lot of guys are like, oh, this document's from 1853 or 1863. It can't be changed, like landmarks. They probably get those two things confused.
Right.
So I just think that in itself is a huge win.
I'm telling you, listen, guys, I just got done reading this book called Atomic Habits. If you haven't read that book, highly recommend it. Right?
We're gonna need the reading list.
Yeah,
we are.
no doubt. Atomic Habits by James Clear. Just finished it last week. But one of the things he was talking about is how athletes excel at sports, or people excel at certain things. Business people excel at certain aspects of business. But why do they excel, right? They do this. The only way to become excellent is to be endlessly fascinated by doing the same thing over and over again. You have to fall in love with boredom.
Yeah.
Because that's all we're talking about, right? We get bored dealing with the Constitution and the bylaws, but we have to fall in love with that boredom. Endlessly fascinated with doing it over and over and over again till it becomes ingrained and it becomes a habit. So this segment is going to create new habits. That's the intent. So my mind, when we thought about this, that was the intent, to create a new habit. Let's create this atomic habit where we fall in love with boredom. We're going to do it over and over and over again. Our brothers will become fascinated with it.
Imagine if we actually make masons.
Wow.
Actually, if we actually create something like the very term is a builder of things, right? We get folks to start building the organization that they're in. And because they create this habit of building, start building the world that they live in.
I believe that plan that I drafted up will give some infrastructure to help with some of the overarching stuff. And even the guys that are already in masonry can refer back to it and still glean a lot of shit from it.
One of the older guys came up to me over that weekend and he's like, man, look, I legitimately didn't know. I didn't know. And this guy is a scholar. This guy is an absolute, I respect him deeply. And I think most of the people in the order respect him very deeply. He is a scholar. Just didn't know. Liz, I give him credit for one, his past and what he has done and how he has elevated this thing of ours. And maybe the thing that I respect him most for is that he came up to me and said, I didn't know.
Humility, yeah. That's crazy. Like, for somebody that's so accomplished to be humble enough to say, I just didn't know. So imagine somebody that's so accomplished that doesn't know. The average Mason doesn't know. So then therein lies a problem. And we have a real problem. Now, this is a real tool to fix said problem, to give out the information.
One of the lessons in it is, like, I wish everybody could have seen it happen, because the lesson is none of us, I don't care who you are, you don't know everything. You don't know everything. And you're perfect. Some people are perfectly justified in what they believe to be true, right? But it's also the willingness to evolve.
I just can't help but think about how much energy and time we put into putting these degrees on. The time, the energy, the mentorship, the ritual, and trying to get it right. And then as soon as that brother is raised as a master mason, what do we say to him? Hey, bro, we'll see you at the next meeting. That's it, man. You know what I mean? That's it.
Thanks for your dues, bro.
So that 2-year master mason plan, I feel like, in regards to that whole process of making a mason, it's the equivalent of running the 100-meter dash and like pulling up at 90 meters, right? We just don't follow through to the end for whatever reason. We need to continue with these guys and teach them stuff like the landmarks, bylaws, constitution, traveling, all this list of stuff that rules come up with, which is brilliant. And just run those extra 10 meters, because that is where we're losing guys, right? Like, what if one of these master masons that disappeared, and we keep hearing this story, right, about these guys like just quietly ghosting the lodge. Like, what if we said, hey man, like, check this out, and be like, oh wow, that's fascinating. And that was the thing that kept them around, right? That was the thing that they were interested in for whatever reason, and they stuck around, and I was so blessed to be exposed to mentors that explained to me that there is just so much in Freemasonry that you can get involved in. Because all these guys are here for different reasons. You like ritual, great. We got some stuff for you. You're interested in the governance of this nonprofit organization, great. We got stuff for you. You want to improve your leadership, great. We got stuff for you. But where lodge culture kind of fails, and we've talked about that, is not understanding its audience. Like, you need to be doing things that are not only engaging your brand new guys, but you're engaging the 25-year Masons, the 50-year Masons, the guys who have been through all the seats. Like, we need to find a way to cater that lodge experience to everybody that comes there and show them the value. And easier said than done, I understand.
One of the things that I noticed sitting in the East, there's this book that has been wanting me to write it for a long time. And sitting in the East, it has become very clear, like, I've started this process. So guys come, I hear guys, I'm a fairly esoteric dude. Like, so people want to talk to me about the esoteric stuff. Like, they want to do stuff, right? And they want to talk about all this stuff, other things. But you know what they really want to talk about? Whatever's going on in their life. What they want is a hug. Men do not get a ton of intimacy. We don't know what it is, how it is. If you speak too much to it, depending on where and how you grew up, it must mean something else that it doesn't need to mean, right?
Yeah.
And when we reach out, like when I reach out and talk to a brother and say, hey man, what's going on? And it just comes out. And that's the thing that like we are in this fraternity together. And one of the things that we have access to is connection to each other.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's missing the most in this world.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
Trey earlier said, like, do we need to get bigger? I don't know the answer to that. Like, do we need to grow as an organization? I don't have the answers to that. But what I can tell you is that there's a need. There's a need for connection. There's a need for genuine relationships. And men are lonelier than they have ever been in their entire life. I read a study not too long ago of men who were not married, who were not in a relationship. I think only 1 in 5 men said that they actually had a friend.
Right.
Mental health. Yeah, mental health is crazy right now. Like we're on a whole nother stratosphere. I mean, I'm a 70s baby.
Yeah.
Right. So my thought process may be a little different. I think Aaron's got me by a few years. Growing up, we didn't talk about this stuff.
Not at all.
This never came up. Like this was, we didn't talk about feelings and emotions and proverbial hugs, and we didn't talk about that.
And it's trash because like you got married dudes, you have dudes in committed relationships and they're long.
Yeah.
They can't say to the women or the other people in their lives, or they don't feel like they can say them. Right? One thing is, I truly believe that men in a lot of ways are more sensitive than women.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And they're in this society that we've all been born and bred in, that is anti-female. You can't be that. Right. And so we don't talk about it. We find brief moments when we can. Like if we're people like we know we feel like we could trust them, we might say the thing or share the thing. But even that, like you're sneaking.
Right.
And so this lodge, this elevated space really is an opportunity. And I find that brothers seek it here.
They do. And I think there's a need for it. And I think that Freemasonry is uniquely positioned to provide this for a society that needs it. But we need to fix ourselves in a lot of ways too, because I feel like we are ill equipped to provide that thing that these guys need in a lot of ways. That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, we have it. We just don't.
Right.
We don't.
Yeah.
How many educators are on this podcast, right? Like there's a ton of tools and you see it, and you don't have to be an educator, right? You're an uncle, you're a grandfather, you're a father, you have it. Like you see, and more importantly, maybe most importantly, is you're one of the lonely guys. You've been that. You know exactly what it is. No,
Yep.
You're not guessing.
Or you can't teach experience, and that's invaluable. And to regurgitate that experience, right? Those lived experiences, that's valuable. That's really valuable. And you don't have to be an educator to give your lived experience to create a positive outlook on other brothers, plural. You just don't have to. Like, you don't have to be highly educated, have a bazillion degrees or whatever the case is. Your lived experiences are invaluable, right? To give those back. I always say this to people. If I give my lived experiences or my experiences and knowledge to one person, I can affect 4 generations. And they look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, no, because if you give it to them and tell them to pay it forward, they're going to give it to somebody who's going to give it to somebody who's going to give it to somebody else. And the gift keeps giving.
Yeah.
And now you've affected multiple generations just by providing your lived experience.
Yeah.
That's all we're trying to do is we're just trying to regurgitate our lived experience. But I tell my wife all the time, men are shallow.
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest, we're fucking shallow. Like,
we're
for real.
we're simple. Like we're pretty basic. And
Shallow Hal. You remember the movie Shallow Hal?
Yeah.
That's who we are.
we look. Here's the thing. Regardless of what our life experiences are, we want the same. We want the same thing.
We're there.
Justin and I want the same thing. You and I, we want the same stuff. Like it may be different sizes. It could be different colors. It could have different flavors to it. But in its essence, it's the same stuff.
Yes. We actually did an energy apprentice degree last night, and we initiated a 22-year-old guy that works at the bank here in town. He's like, I hope this makes me a better man by being in the lodge. And I told him, hey man, just by association, just by you being here, you're going to get better because you're hanging out with guys that just have life experience.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And it's as simple as that. If you can look past, that age gap, because there's a tremendous age gap. I think there's probably, I think the next youngest guy in the lodge is probably 40, right? I was like,
Right.
if you could just look past the superficial age isms and all this other stuff, right?
Mhm.
You're going to realize that you are going to gain so much just by being in the presence of these other guys. Not that we're great or good or have our stuff together. In a lot of cases, we don't, but we're going to be able to tell you what we did wrong in our lives, and that's probably more important than telling you what we did well in our lives.
Here's a pothole.
But go around the pothole, right? Don't step in it, right?
You probably will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
We'll be here.
Right.
We'll
We'll
be
right.
We'll
pull
pick you up.
Yep.
We'll
But
pick you up.
what's going to help us get rid of that age gap, and we got to reiterate this to some of the younger brothers, is we have a commonality. So let's focus on the commonality and not
Yes.
the age gap. Because if we get caught up in the age gap, then we lose focus. Then we
Yep.
lose sight of what we're trying to accomplish, which is the commonality. You talked about an entered apprentice degree. We do need to spend more time on an entered apprentice degree, because I say it 1,000 times. You can't get to step 33 without taking step 1.
Yep.
And then step 1 is the foundation. That's the cornerstone, right? That is that pivotal piece in every building that we just need to focus on. Because if that's weak, the whole infrastructure will be weak. And we don't spend enough time on it. I really feel we don't spend enough time on an entered apprentice degree. We really should really dive deep, because there's so many lessons to learn. A brother comes in, he gets his entered apprentice degree. He should learn about Boaz and Ruth, and he should start as a foundational piece, learning that I have a constitutional bond with OES. Why?
Yep.
Because of Ruth and Boaz. That's so small, but so huge at the same time.
Yep.
And that's just one piece. That's only one piece. That's one microcosm of the entire entered apprentice degree. And then the humility of Boaz, right? It keeps, and then it starts, it's unspiraling from there, spiraling out of control, just get bigger and bigger and bigger. So we just need to spend more time.
We do, and we don't let it kind of happen organically. Like,
No.
I feel like lodges, we have our schedule and we have these things that we want to do, and we kind of force the Mason into our schedule and our box instead of kind of letting him progress naturally and organically. It's, like, I need to get these guys raised because, I'm the worship master. I need to get them raised before my year is up. Like, we're trying to
get my money in.
Yeah.
we're trying to put these guys in a box, and all we do is screw ourselves, because there's a guy that is not going to come back because we accelerated him faster and he needed to be accelerated.
And he doesn't understand. It's like, and I'm gonna kind of date myself in there. Most of you probably seen this. Remember the show Mork and Mindy?
Yeah. That's a long ass time ago.
Exactly. But think about it. Think about when Mork came to Earth, right? He was just in this egg pod. He only knew certain things, but it took eventually he started to learn little things, but it took a long time for him to learn other things, right? And that's the same thing with new Masons. They're like Morks. They come in, we got to really take our time and cultivate that understanding of what they're doing now, because they came in darkness. This is a whole new world, different language, different way of thinking, understanding, ideologies. Here's the commonality. Mork, we need to do some work, right?
We also need to understand that 20% rule is universal, right?
Yes.
So, like, me and Trey, how many guys we come through with, Trey? Were there 10 of us?
Yeah.
There's 10 of us.
Yeah.
And I would argue that how many of us are still real active? 20%.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally. So the Paleo rule is alive and well. And
It's
that's
universal.
It's not a good thing.
It is what it is. Like, but look, I think also for our lodge's benefit, just for the Mason, not just for the entered apprentice,
Yeah.
us, because we get frustrated. We bring these guys in, they don't want to work.
Yeah.
These guys in, and they don't want to get engaged in masonry. They want to put a badge on their car. They want to put but you get to say no.
Yeah.
You get to find out who this person is before you bring them to the next step, and you don't have to bring them on.
Yeah.
You keep going,
Yeah,
and for their benefit and yours.
But
right?
see, this is why. Think about guys getting raised 6 months later to sign somebody's petition.
Yeah. Or
Right,
jamming
right.
them in officer seat.
Correct.
Yeah. Are we really doing ourselves a good service? No, we're not. That's why in that plan I outlined they should go on a Masonic investigation. Why? Because they need to see that background before it becomes, or they're in that position and they have to make that decision.
Yeah.
If a guy gets raised in 6 months and he signs somebody's petition, you should reject that petition.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
I would like to see petitions rejected. I think that it's like 100%, right? It's
We
like,
get all pissed off when we got to accept it. Just no. We don't have to accept anything.
Look, I went on an investigation early on. I was probably a year or two in, And we did it the right way. The guy was married, so we went to his house and we made sure
his wife.
his
great.
wife was there.
Mhm.
Put a flamethrower on me. I mean, she blew me up. She was not interested at all in this guy being a Mason. And she let me in particular, she let me have it. I walked out of there, no eyebrows on, like it was crazy. And the beauty of it was, though he really kind of wanted to be a Mason, it wasn't time for him to do it
Nope.
because he wanted his family more, I guarantee you, than he wanted the lodge. And him being in the lodge would have destroyed his family. She
Yep.
was not into it at all. There were other things that would be a better fit for him. What he really needed to focus on is his family.
Yep.
But, you know, I learned a ton about it. Like I learned how important it was to do investigations
Absolutely.
in that moment.
Absolutely. It is a good educational piece, right? When we talk about these foundational pieces, that's a pretty huge foundational piece because again, you get raised in 6 months, you go from a dead level to a living perpendicular, you're signing the petition. How does that even make sense?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me.
No.
So we just got to
Right.
stop it, man. We got to stop the nonsense.
And
Like,
we need to be honest about what Masonry is and what it isn't.
do.
I think that we try to be
do.
cooler than we actually are and try
Mhm.
to be cryptic and try to keep it mysterious. Like there are things that we don't share, but I just think that we misrepresent ourselves sometimes. I don't know if you guys have that same feeling.
Because
Yeah.
look, all the stuff is there. If you want to know what it is, you can Google it, man.
Go to Reddit.
Right away. Right now. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So, Justin, do me a favor. Define masonry.
What do you want the textbook answer or what it is to me?
I want you to blend them.
I mean, it's an ancient order that's taught through, it's a system of morality taught through symbols.
I don't want the textbook.
You don't,
Now,
I
ask
want you
Trey
to
that
tell me
same
what it
question.
really is. What is it
Yeah.
really?
I think it can be, I can think it'd be a lot of different things to a lot of different people.
Yeah.
You know, I think that you can gain genuine connection, which we all need. I think that it could be a service organization if you wanted it to be. You know, I think that it fills holes and gaps in your life. You know, if I wasn't a great public speaker and I wasn't, and I'm still not, but I'm better than I was as a result of Masonry. You know,
Yeah.
standing up and talking in front of a bunch of people, I got more comfortable doing it. And I didn't get more comfortable through my job, but that was the platform that I have. And I think that Freemasonry provides platforms for men to improve themselves. However, we've talked about this before. I hate making good men better. I think that is the most absolutely ridiculous thing that we should just strike from our language, but guys still say it. But I do think that we present information to people in a way that makes them inquisitive and they want to go find out answers on their own. How deep dive they do, I don't know, but mentorship is everything. You know, I wouldn't have gotten involved with some of the esoteric stuff if it wasn't for Raul. I can honestly say Raul got me influenced my entire trajectory in Masonry. Had I not have met him, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at and doing what I am right now. So is it luck? I don't know.
Do you put salt on your babies before you eat them? You unseasoned.
Unseasoned.
Okay. Me too. I prefer the baby flavor, but
yeah, but
I agree with you.
It's just, man, it's the time and place. And I was particularly fortunate. And the only thing that I can do at this point is try to be that guy for someone else. Like that's my responsibility. I was given these things. I was provided this, you know, and it's my job to pass it on. And unfortunately, guys don't pass it on, or they pass it on the wrong way.
And that's the thing. Like if we have a structure, and we do, and we follow that structure, and we should, then I think it is still true. So a guy asked me how many forms of masonry there were, and I was like, I don't know, count the number of masons on the planet, and that's how many types of masonry there are. And I think that is good, so long as they all have in common the structure. What it is. This is what it's supposed to be. This is how it's supposed to function, right? Like we're not the Boy Scouts. You know what I mean? Like we're not whatever. We're not alpha.
Structure as far as lineage, or structure as far as values?
Both.
Yeah, I say both.
Okay.
I think that there to a certain extent, the men in the lodge also bring their values to it, right? I think we have to be careful with that, because that can go too far and suddenly you're on Masonic, right? Like if your values are that you think that the Ku Klux Klan is the best organization ever to see the planet, right? And you bring that to Masonry, which has happened many times.
Sure.
You know, our very ritual was written by a very prominent Grand Dragon, right?
We're not gonna go there.
And I'm just
That would be a
saying,
good. That would be a good topic.
Yeah,
Right.
Mr. being raised in 1850, talking. Never mind.
right. But I'm just saying, like that culture is un-Masonic, and we still feel some of that in the United States. But I think it's both. I think it's common culture. I think it's common lineage.
Mhm.
The ability to speak to that improvement of us as individuals, right, should be one of the common pieces that we improve ourselves with this tool.
I would love to have a topic just on unrecognized or quote unquote clandestine lodges.
The next episode will be that.
I want to hear more about what that means.
So get some talking points, and the next episode will be that. It's just that easy, right? When we come back in a couple of weeks, we got to open those portals because we're scared to have these conversations, and we need to have these conversations so people are aware of what's going on.
Well, are you talking about recognition, where one lodge or one group of lodges doesn't recognize another lodge because there are a certain thing that they don't appreciate? Or are you talking about lodges that are maybe have gone off on their own way, or guys that have spread their own lodges because they were dissatisfied or disgruntled, but they're not under the charter of anything, or at least the original thing, and then are considered clandestine? What are you talking?
So I will tell a story at a annual communication from a Grand Lodge, which I will not disclose. At the end, all of the Grand Lodges that are visiting usually present a gift to the Grand Master, and it's a big thing, and everybody claps, blah, 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 blah. The George Washington Union Grand Master, who was a female, was invited, presented a gift to the Grand Master. You could hear a pin drop.
Yep.
And I know quite a bit about that particular order. And this is what I will say, that they conduct business as Masons should conduct business. However, they're not recognized by anybody, but they're making good.
England. The Grand Lodge of England recognizes them firmly.
Sure. None of us do, right? None of the United States do, but they still make contributions. They're still charitable. They're still living their lives as Masons, as far as I can tell from the outside looking in. I'm not a member, right? So is that necessarily a bad thing? Because I feel like I just feel like it's a little taboo when we're talking about lineage. We're literally talking about a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Like at what point do we not recognize them, but recognize the work that they do and recognize the value? I'm not saying that I'm going to be joining any of these orders anytime soon, because I'm not.
We will never overcome that cultural bias.
Right? It's a weird thing.
I'll say never.
No, I don't think in this lifetime, I don't think any of us on this call will ever see that change. It may happen. It may happen, right? It may happen in this lifetime. It's just our pride. I think I go back to the P word. I think, and that's not all of us, right? I just think that our pride will basically will prohibit that.
If your charter and your allegiance technically is owed to a particular order, in this case, the Grand Lodge of England, right? But your ritual is the ritual of a racist, and you are not honoring and recognizing the same things of the places because listen, you're very proud of the charter.
Right.
If you're not also in line with them, why not just cast off the charter and call it whatever you want to do it? Right. And if you are in alignment with your lineage, is there a conversation to be had about realigning with your lineage and how they operate and what they think and what they talk about and how their ritual looks? The fact that they don't recognize one all-female Masonic lodge, they recognize 3 of them and let them do work in their halls.
Yeah, we will definitely table this. I'm telling you right now, because this is good. This is a ball of yarn that's going to come unraveled, and we'll be here all night. So we're going to table this. I'm going to be the adult.
Looking forward to it.
Say we're going to table this because the next segment will be a lot heavy Constitution. But I do want us to kind of at some point, either the beginning or the end, probably the end, to make it spicy, kind of dive back into this. So Justin, we'll talk about some talking points. Yeah. That's a setup move. Boom, right? That's an explosion waiting to happen.
Somebody asked me when I first like, would you raise a transsexual man? And it clearly the question was set up as it was a trap.
Right.
But look, All these questions I think are super valid. No, I'm not going to answer it, bro.
I saw Trey wanted to say something.
Ray, what you got?
You got two Marines on this call.
No, I'm a table that. Yeah, I'm good.
Stick a
Very
pin
good.
in.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me lighten it up. Let me lower the bar a little bit. Would you raise a gay man that you knew to be that?
Me personally?
Everybody can answer.
It's already been done.
Yeah.
Ask if it's been done. I know.
That's my response. I'm not going to tell you my personal opinion, but my response is it's already been done. What are we really, whether I say I would or not is irrelevant because it's already been done.
You know, I think
that was kind of a dead issue at this point.
is
Yeah.
it? Is it?
I think so. At least in
Yeah.
the jurisdictions that I'm in. I can't speak for
Like lifestyle. And I get Aaron's point, and I'm not going to speak for him, but I can almost think about what's the qualifications to be a Mason, right?
I raise a man. Raise a man. And
Yeah.
so for me, it's great, right? There's the great. I'll raise a man. If you want to be a woman, then there's another order for you. That's how I see it, right? I know that's dangerous, but if you're a man, I can't qualify what that is. I can't.
Yeah, but and again, to be fair, one, it's already been done. Your alternative lifestyle is your alternative.
Has nothing to do with your manhood.
Absolutely, and whatever your alternative lifestyle is, your alternative lifestyle.
Correct.
My thing is, and this is just me personally. At the end of the day, can you be the very principle of a brother?
Yes.
I say the very principle. And when I say that, think about what
Yeah.
I'm saying. The very principle of a brother. If I need you, if I'm stranded, if I'm in distress, I'll give you the grand hailing sign. Will you fly to my relief? Your sexuality has nothing to do
At all.
with your ability to be a brother.
At all.
Period. Like, and just put that out there because there's different races, genders, people that watch the show. I just want to make sure that I say that, and I mean that. I'm not just saying that for fluff.
Who you love has nothing to do. Okay.
Absolutely not.
You pray to.
Well, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. No.
Man, why would we
We're not-
want to get so controversial?
Why?
at
We're
the
not
end?
doing that. We're not doing
We
what
on your
we're
spicy,
what we're
man.
gonna do is say we'll see y'all in a couple weeks. It's been a pleasure. And
Yeah.
I'm going to dodge that freaking bullet right now. This dude, you can't catch me. I'm the gingerbread man. Thank y'all for watching, man. I appreciate y'all. That's crazy.
You know, guys.
Is this what we're doing in 2025? Yeah.
Look,
Yep.
ask good questions to get good answers. And the man said, stay in trouble. Just make sure it's good trouble.
But that man was also a famous guy, and I won't say what fraternity he was from. But anyway, I'll say that for another day. All right. Hey, be blessed.
And if that's
Thanks, guys.
all right.